It all started with a smile that felt like a sales pitch. When the new HOA president, Cynthia, came around with shiny folders and a vision board that looked ripped from a luxury resort ad, I should have known trouble was brewing. The plan? Transform our quiet lakeside community into an exclusive cabin experience. Their words, not mine. 50 upscale rental cabins, new signage, a communal marina, all funded by collective investment. Meaning, every homeowner's wallet was up for grabs. At first, I played along. The proposal meetings were a carnival of buzzwords: revitalization, eco-luxury, shared prosperity. But buried under the enthusiasm was the smell of entitlement. The HOA board talked like they already owned the land, the lake, and, apparently, everyone's opinion. I kept quiet, taking notes, because in small-town property disputes, silence is a better weapon than outrage. The real kicker came 2 weeks later. I woke one morning to the clanging of metal posts being rammed into the ground along the main access road, my road. I watched the crew unfurl survey tape, hammer stakes, and roll out blueprints across my gravel like it was public pavement. My gut told me this wasn't some misunderstanding. This was full-blown arrogance. When I approached the project manager, a man in mirrored sunglasses and borrowed authority, I pointed out the obvious. The road wasn't HOA property. It wasn't common ground. It was mine. My late father had built it decades ago to reach our cabin plot, carving it through our parcel before the HOA ever existed. The man shrugged, said the board understood it to be community access, then went back to his clipboard. That shrug lit a fuse. Within days, the noise tripled. Bulldozers arrived, truckloads of lumber blocked my driveway, and the eco-luxury project became a full-blown invasion. I contacted the HOA office, but they dodged every call. When I finally cornered Cynthia at a board meeting, she gave me a tight smile and said, "It's just progress, Richard. You'll thank us when property values rise." That's when I decided she'd never see it coming. I started digging. Not in the literal sense, though I was tempted. I dug through the county's old plat maps, the original survey records, the dusty storage boxes in my late father's barn. And there it was, a deed, handwritten in fading ink, clearly describing the access road as a private easement held exclusively by our family. It was still valid, still recorded, and still mine. As I flipped through the documents under a flickering desk lamp, a thought crept in. Let them build. Let them sink their money, their sweat, and their pride into this project. Then, when it mattered most, I'd pull the rug, or better yet, the road, right out from under them. But before that perfect moment could arrive, I needed evidence. Every email, permit, and handshake deal they'd made while steamrolling over property rights. So, I set up a small dash cam facing the road, a security camera by the gate, and a GPS tracker on a delivery truck that kept hauling materials through my property. If they thought this was just a disgruntled neighbor ranting, they were about to realize they'd walked into a legal trap years in the making. Late one night, I stood at the edge of the road, listening to the hum of distant engines echo through the trees. The gravel under my boots wasn't just dirt and stone. It was leverage, legacy, and soon, justice waiting to be served. By midsummer, the cabins were nearly finished, glossy cedar siding gleaming in the sunlight, wraparound decks overlooking the lake. It looked like something from a luxury magazine, all right. But underneath the polish, there was one fatal flaw no one seemed to notice. Every delivery truck, contractor van, and real estate agent's SUV drove across land that didn't belong to them. My land. The HOA had gone radio silent with me, probably on their lawyer's advice. But a few residents quietly stopped me in town. Whispers in the hardware store aisle, quick, off-the-record chats by the gas pump. Apparently, word had spread that the board had pushed the project through with half-signed permits, skipped an environmental review, and maybe, just maybe, assumed they could bully through the ownership issue later. The arrogance was almost impressive. Almost. That's when I called in help. My first ally was an old friend of my dad's, Tom Barlow, a retired surveyor with a memory like an elephant and the patience of a saint. We spent 2 full days digging through dusty county files, tracing the easement line inch by inch. Standing out there with his laser level and faded baseball cap, Tom confirmed what I already knew. The HOA's entire development sat behind a single choke point, the one-lane access road cutting straight through my property. Without my consent, No legal ingress or egress existed. In layman's terms, they'd built $1 million project with no driveway. Next came my lawyer, Maggie Trent. With her, I didn't need small talk, just results. When I handed her the old deed and Tom's survey notes, her eyebrows rose, and she let out one sharp laugh. "Oh, this is going to be fun," she said. Maggie lived for these kinds of cases. Clear facts, clear overreach, and just enough drama to make the courtroom feel like a stage. We began compiling evidence like detectives. The dashcam footage captured trucks unloading lumber at 2 a.m., one even knocking over my private road. No trespassing sign. The GPS tracker showed repeat trespass patterns. And Maggie's paralegal pulled email records from the county office proving that Cynthia had personally vouched that the road is common access maintained by the association. It wasn't just wrong, it was perjury bait. The plan took shape. We'd hold off filing an injunction until the cabins were officially open, so their operational debut would hit a legal wall, literally. Meanwhile, Maggie advised me to keep a civil face. "Don't tip your hand," she said. "Let them think you gave up. It'll make the reveal sweeter." So that's what I did. I nodded politely when Cynthia waved from her convertible, bit my tongue at board meetings, and even offered them lemonade once, a peace gesture masking quiet satisfaction. They thought they'd worn me down. They thought I'd accepted my new neighborly reality. But behind that fence-post camera and those neat rows of invoices, my trap was nearly set. Then came the inspection week. The HOA had invited local officials, realtors, and even a lifestyle blogger to tour the first completed cabins. Shiny brochures boasted lakeside luxury living. Every car that rolled in passed my hidden trail cam. Each frame captured was time-stamped, GPS tagged, and ready for court. The night before the grand opening, I met Maggie and Tom at my kitchen table. Blueprints and coffee cups covered every inch of wood grain. Tom leaned back and said, "They don't even realize their dream resort is landlocked without your permission. You could build a gate tonight, and they'd be stranded." I smiled at that. Not yet, I thought. Timing mattered. The longer they strutted, the louder the crash would sound. Still, I couldn't help it. The next morning, as early mist rose from the lake and a convoy of luxury SUVs approached, I stood near the mailbox, watching. Gravel dust swirled like theater curtains about to part. Soon enough, the show would begin. The morning of the grand opening played out like pure theater. Balloons, champagne flutes, and the smug glint of success reflected in every window pane of those gleaming cabins. The HOA board strutted around like property moguls, greeting guests, snapping selfies, and congratulating themselves for transforming the community. I waited until the clock struck noon, the perfect moment when cameras were live and most of the visitors had already driven up the road. I rolled the gate across the entrance and locked it. A big, unmistakable sign hung dead center. Private property. Access revoked by owner. At first, no one noticed. Then car engines idled awkwardly. A few confused honks echoed, and by the time Cynthia spotted me on the hill above the gate, her confidence had cracked into panic. She hurried down, heels slipping in the gravel. "Richard, what on earth are you doing?" she demanded, voice trembling somewhere between outrage and disbelief. I kept my tone calm, almost casual. "Just installing a gate on my private road," I said. "You remember, the one your contractors have been using for 6 months without legal access." Her expression froze, the kind that comes from realizing the checkmate wasn't coming tomorrow. It already happened several moves ago. By the time the county sheriff's deputy showed up, summoned by someone from the HOA claiming I was blocking a community access route, Maggie was already there with a folder in hand. She handed the deputy the deed, the survey, and the stack of video and GPS evidence. He flipped through it, whistled softly, and said, "Looks to me like this man's within his rights." The party atmosphere curdled. Guests who'd come to tour the exclusive resort found themselves stranded, debating whether to reverse down a narrow one-lane road or wait while lawyers argued. News spread fast. Someone had been live streaming the whole debacle, and within hours the internet had christened the saga Luxury Lockout Lake. The real twist came 3 days later at the emergency HOA meeting. Cynthia and her board tried one last gambit, a legal challenge claiming historical community use. It failed spectacularly. Not only did Maggie dismantle their argument with every recorded violation and falsified statement, But the regulatory inspector she brought in revealed yet another bombshell. Because their access route wasn't legally secured, their entire construction permit was void. Every one of those 50 cabins? Technically illegal structures. The HOA's investors scattered. The county slapped the board with fines for false declarations and environmental code breaches. And Cynthia? She resigned the next morning, citing personal reasons. That weekend, I reopened the gate, but only to remove the heavy chain so I could add a keypad. If anyone wanted through now, they'd need to ask politely and in writing. A few months later, I sold timed access rights to a small maintenance company, legally binding, properly compensated. The road that once cost me peace of mind now earned me a tidy monthly income. As for the cabins, they still sit there, silent and locked, like expensive monuments to hubris. I sometimes walk the road at dusk, the gravel crunching underfoot, remembering my father's calloused hands raking the first stones into place all those years ago. What we build, we protect, not just with deeds, but with the quiet conviction that respect must be earned, not assumed. In the end, I didn't just win back my property rights. I reminded everyone watching, neighbors, officials, even that smug HOA board, that maps aren't made by committees. They're drawn by those willing to stand their ground, wait their moment, and close the gate when arrogance comes knocking.